Cattleman paid for a swept barn. The door swung and he faced a mother, fighting for four. Bright noon holds the sky steady like a clean sheet over the basin. Heat hums on the boards of a weathered porch. Briscoe shifts weight, once tail flicks dust into tiny suns. Rhett Calloway steps down with a willow broom in one hand, a sack of lime in the other. Coins clink inside a tin by his belt line, breath easy, eyes flint clear. He raps the door with the iron hook tied as a knocker. Once, twice, thrice, then the anchor hits fast. A tied broom behind the door topples outward when the latch lifts. Chalk dust bursts into daylight across his boots. Four tiny pairs of scuffed leather line the sill like sentries, and Nora Ellis fills the frame with a hay fork across the jam wrists, steady jaw, set hair pulled into a single braid that says, "No time for vanity today. Work or leave, Mr. No Talk. No pity, only coin, and a job done before the sun drops." Rhett plants the broom upright so it will not spook the little ones. Places a silver dollar with an eagle scratch on the crate by the step, then lays the sack of lime near the threshold. Voice low, steady. No push job is the barn. Miss Ellis stall floors need lime gutters, need clearing a load of straw once turning. I pay fair, I do not loiter. Nora measures the boots by the sill without looking down, then steps aside so the door swings wide without striking anyone. Apron clean but thin seam at the hip stitched twice. She sets the fork teeth down out of reach, picks a tin dipper. Lets the man see water is for guests, not fear. A nod follows tiny as a thread. Bring your broom, Cattleman. The barn waits, the little ones help in the shade. Not in the dust of hooves, Ivy. Joan, Kit, Amos mind the line, do not cross the sill. Unless I call it, Rhett walks behind Nora, past a row of laundry that snaps like flags of a tiny nation. Boots crunch in the yard, heat lays flat across iron hoops and a broken wheel. The barn breathes old hay and horse sweat. Light pours in slants through plank seams. Every dust mote a slow comet. Nora ties the braid tighter, rolls sleeves to elbows. Hands spare but capable, she claims a shovel and the day begins with motion. Not talk lime scatters pale as bone across the floor. Rake teeth follow in clean arcs. Broom strokes settle a rhythm. Briscoe watches from a tie rail. Ears forward, rope slack, safe framing, always muzzle down, rifle not present, no threat on display, only tools of work. The long middle starts to build stance against time breath. Measured micro things keep it alive, cloth edge lifting with each step. Stove smoke thread sneaking from the house chimney, horse ear twitching. To flies, Rhett notes a cracked plank near the hayloft. He wedges a block so a child foot will not find air instead of wood. Nora notices without praise, pulls a second wedge from a nail keg, places it where a heel chewed the board last winter. Good eye, Calloway. Her voice offers no curtain of charm, only function the kind that saves skin when the wind turns ugly. Where did you ride in from? He taps the bandana knot. High Plains, North Fork cattle scattered after the spring flood chutes lost a gate. I am a man who prefers a sound hinge to luck. Nora lets that land like a board across a sawhorse. Sound hinges. Cost coin left my pocket when Mercer's rider cracked a ledger on this table last month while the baby slept. You know, the kind of man, Rhett does not blink. Sloan, Mercer rides for the land agent with a mouth that writes threats on air, came to my place once, tried to price my fence posts as if they were his. A slow day would suit me better than his boot on anyone's step. Nora works the lime harder, jaw tight, then lets the tension go like a rein. I do not take gifts, she states. I sell labor. He nods. That is the only fair trade. There is silence turns steady work into something like music. Rake, scrape, broom, hush, shovel, lift. A swallowtail drifts in from the open door as if it owns the air. Ivy's laugh pops from the shade, then fades. Nora glances toward the house, a habit built from long nights and empty chairs. Rhett checks the tie on Briscoe again. No fidget allowed in tight spaces. Safety is an unseen hero today. A creak touches the rafters. Old rope whispers, a wooden pail nudges toward the edge of the loft. Kit must be crawling where he should not. Nora moves with a quiet speed. Broom down, hand up, palm open. Kit returned to the blue stool by the door. Now a small head appears, hair in his eyes. The child slides to the ladder carefully. 1 rung, 2 rungs, bare toes, careful, then a boot thud on dirt. No drama stated, only relief placed gently on the moment. Rhett fits a new peg through the pail handle, so no fall will tempt fate. He passes it to Nora without flourish. The teamwork looks like it has years behind it. Though they met minutes ago, sweat writes thin lines at the temples. He wipes with the bandana knot. Still neat, the man prefers order over noise, it shows in the rake rows. Arrow straight, the midday edge arrives, then slices thin when hooves drum the south road. A new dust ribbon curls above the sage. Not many riders, 2, maybe 3 shadows long Sloan. Mercer likes an audience, but he will come with witnesses, not fighters. Nora's gaze hits the light slice at the door. Mouth tightens, the fork finds her palm again. Not raised hostile, only ready to hold ground. Rhett sets the fork back against the stall wall. Quietly voice, even we keep the day in daylight. Work continues outside, talk happens on the porch, nothing inside where little ears remember too much. They step into the heat together. Porch boards warm through boot leather. Briscoe breathes slow, will not spook, because reins lie quiet against the rail. 2 riders angle into the yard. Sloan Mercer up front, town coat, too fine for sun ledger, strap across his chest like a medal second man, thin lips, tin badge glints, the kind that smells of borrowed authority. Mercer smiles with no teeth. Miss Ellis, this week's number has ink on it, and the agent does not like blank spaces. Nora's chin lifts, this week's number, bought flour lye and a strap for the pump handle. This week's number also bought 6 feet of rope to pull a wagon out of a rut. When your man failed at it behind Mercer, the thin badge man smirks. Rhett steps to the rail. Both hands visible, voice flat, stable, higher. Today is mine coin. Already left my pocket, work in progress, property of the contract until dusk. Mercer tilts his head. Contract, big word for straw and shovels. Cattleman, Rhett shrugs, words are nails. You pick the right length for the job you want to hold. Mercer swings his leg from the saddle lands, boot on dust, lets the ledger fall open. Pages pre-marked with lines that look like fences made of ink signature. Here, Miss Ellis, or I take collateral, young goat's tools. Maybe that broom if it is all you claim to own. Nora's face goes still, then brighter somehow, like metal wiped clean. You are not taking a child or a thing a child uses. I trade labor, not bodies. She moves the fork behind her thigh, safe angle, visible but not pointing anywhere. The badge man snorts. Towns have rules out here. Lines bend with the wind. Rhett places a second silver on the porch rail. The eagle scratch catches light 2 days higher. He says, solid voice. No wobble, you send a new number next week with ink fit for human eyes. Mercer watches the coin as if it might bite, then glances at Briscoe, then at the broom inside the barn, calculates angles, sees no fear and tastes it anyway. His smile fades, then returns, thinner, little arrangement here smells like a fight. Later he purrs. Rhett does not gift him a reply. Mercer mounts with a hiss of leather badge. Man follows, hooves draw small clouds that drift behind them like lies that forgot their own story. Nora exhales through her nose, once a valve, opening then closing. She leans the fork back on its nails. Breath squares, shoulders settle. Rhett lifts the broom again, re-enters the barn motion, restarts like a mill wheel. After a pause, sweat chalk. Dust floor lines straighten into lanes that look like choices being made. Ivy appears in the doorway, small hands around a dipper. Joan holds her skirt to keep dust from a cloth doll kit, guards a bucket like a sergeant. Amos sleeps somewhere, soft. Nora glances once, smiles without showing teeth. Not coy, not shy, simply a line on a face that had forgotten how to send such a message. Rhett studies a warped board near the door, pulls it, and sets a new brace with a peg whittled from a scrap. He keeps in his vest pocket. The man saves futures an inch at a time. Not with speeches, the day leans forward a touch more when a low moan rises from the north fence line. A steer caught. Its horn in wire. Not a gore scene, nothing graphic. Only a real risk to flesh and hide. Nora moves first, grabs a canvas feed sack and a length of rope. Rhett follows with a fence tool, safe again. No weapon shown, only iron meant to cut wire rather than skin. They cross the yard, quick, quiet, crisp. Nora throws the sack over the animal eye, a hood to calm the giant ribs slow as the breath accepts the dark. Rhett twists a staple free with the tool. The wire slips off the horn. A scrape leaves a slice of hair, not blood. The steer blinks under the sack, then takes a step out of the trap. Nora eases the hood away. Rhett claps twice to send the brute toward open grass. Hooves thud, fence holds strong, because the man fixed that brace earlier. A loop closes without fuss. They stand shoulder to shoulder, breathing dust that tastes like work. Nora wipes her forearm with the apron hem, then ties the rope back on its peg. Not a show, just maintenance the way strong folks do when nobody is writing it down. The light begins its long slope, but the yard stays bright clean, readable, the kind of frame elders appreciate. The barn now smells like order, straw turned lime. Working its quiet medicine, Briscoe drinks from the trough, slow ears still happy with the world. Nora counts boots by the sill under her breath, 4 pairs matched as if drills had trained them. Brave little army Rhett lifts the broom. One more time runs, rows down the last stall. Sets the handle into the corner where it will not fall at night. Nora checks the trough again. Checks the tiny latch on the cellar hatch. Checks the peg that holds a simple charm. A thread of blue yarn. Someone once tied for luck, last check complete. She faces the Cattleman square. You paid fair. Your barns will run a week smoother for this day. If you need more of this, send no message. Just ride the road yourself. I deal with eyes, not with paper. Rhett nods once, a contract signed without ink. Then he says something that costs a pride coin but pays back 10 times. Mercer returns tomorrow with wagons to shame you in public. I have seen that trick. He uses noise to make debt look like virtue. I will be here at dawn with 2 riders who prefer hinges to luck. We will stack your split wood, haul water, fix the pump arm if it wants fixing. Do you accept the favor? If favor is the word for coin I did not ask for, Nora takes that in without blinking, then answers with a sentence that becomes the hinge of the whole tale. You are not a savior. You are a witness with hands. I accept hands. Rhett touches the brim of a hat that has no feather, no decoration. Then he slides the second silver back toward her palm, not as charity as prepay for another day of labor. Tomorrow's sunup. Bright daylight, no shadows, no gossip. We make a stage of competence, not a theater of pity. Nora keeps the coin because pride is not a wall. It is a gate with good hinges. She says, bring those riders quiet, men not boys who spit stories. Rhett grins a fraction, Flint eyes softer. Briscoe snorts as if agreeing. Micro-motion never quits. A curtain stirs at the house. A lantern wick gets trimmed for evening without being lit. Yet the image remains pure, day safety first, till the cut to black that will not come today. Because the rule says bright at open, bright at end. Nora stacks tools in a clean row, broom, rake, fork, shovel in order of reach. She drapes the canvas apron on a peg, reveals the brown leather belt, sky blue fabric catching the last high sun. The braid hangs straight down the back like a river that learned how to flow through rock. Ivy Joan kit Amos settle inside with bread heels and a tin of apple left from yesterday. Nora turns once more to the Cattleman, voice low, steady. No tremor. You have your own fence lines, Mr. Calloway. Do not lose coin on mine. Rhett answers with the only sentence that would not insult this ground. Coin returns when ground holds, when children sleep. When a barn stops smelling like panic, that is profit, even if ledgers throw a tantrum. He leads Briscoe toward the gate. No fancy farewell, just a man removing his shadow from another person's house. The sky stays clean hot. Honest, Nora stands where porch meets dust fork on the nails. Coin warm in her palm spine. Tall, the day cuts to its last bright note, then holds a beat longer like a fiddle stroke that refuses to fade. The yard wakes in white daylight, clean as new timber. Rhett Calloway rides in at sunup with 2 quiet hands. Josiah Hale on a dun mare, Luther Stoddard on a flea-bitten grey. Both men in denim shirts, scuffed boots, plain felt hats, tools across saddle horns. Not rifles, no swagger, only hinge men who count bolts by touch. Briscoe nickers once as if greeting old friends. Nora Ellis meets them on the porch braid. Tight sleeves rolled the fork already on its nails apron tied in a square knot at the back. The 4 small boots lined at the sill remain like posted sentries. Rhett lifts a palm that says morning and work begins without noise. Josiah sets a brace under the pump arm. Luther lays out wedges by the warped threshold. Rhett shoulders a saw and takes 3 stubborn slats from the feed room floor. The longboards come up with a groan, then settle straight on new joists. The barn starts to breathe different, like a chest that finally found rhythm. Nora hauls water, then lime, then straw rope, coils live again neatly by the peg. Briscoe stands tied loose, eyes soft. The house curtain moves on a friendly draft. The lantern wick trims to a pencil point. Though no flame is needed, the scene reads bright, safe, visible to older eyes, with no shadow tricks, and the middle of the day draws itself wide so that patience has room to stand the calm breaks, not by accident, but by design. Iron rattles on the south road, followed by 2 low wagons drawing to withers under heavy loads. Sloane Mercer returns, ledger strapped tight across his chest coat. Too fine for dust. A pair of mules sweat dark into their collars. A third team trails a flatbed piled with crates and a drum labeled by hand in tar. No printed words, only a crude slash that looks like lightning. The badge man from yesterday rides, left shoulder, and a freckled freighter balances the tail. A rough crowd to make a scene, not a war. Mercer swings down, takes the yard like a stage, flips his ledger open to a page where lines make fences and taps the blank where a signature should sit. He announces an exchange day to balance numbers by public view. Not a shout, a purr that loves an audience. Nora steps to the porch edge fork. Low, safe posture, braids still straight. Rhett drops his saw, lays both hands open at belt height. Josiah and Luther hold where they stand. Tools down, palms clean. The man in the ledger does not want blood. He wants ink and ore. He tries for both. A slim bell on the flatbed rings once when the freighter flicks it with a nail head. The sound lands hard on small hearts inside the house. The curtain stills. Rhett takes 1 even step forward, voice quiet. This ground does its own math feed, minus fear equals future. You have no claim to spread your show here. Mercer tilts a smile, a little lesson in credit, helps a valley breathe, Cattleman. Then he flicks 2 fingers, the freighter hops off the tail and kicks a wedge from the front wheel to roll the flatbed 3 paces closer to the porch for effect. The yard drops a few inches in that run, and the tar barrel bumps the side plank. Jumps, the chock begins a round, slow slide straight toward the steps. Nora sees it first, jaw set, eyes narrow. The world shrinks to wood-iron slope children inside, and a barrel bound with hoops rolling with its own ideas. The hold of the day tightens into a thread. Rhett does not waste breath. He launches into the path with a stableman's stride, grabs a barn shovel as he goes, drives the blade under the barrel lip to check the roll. The steel bites dirt, skids, burrs a groove. The barrel still comes heavy and convinced. Josiah dives for a fence post. Wedge hurls the block to Rhett, who traps the far hoop. Luther loops a rope across the upper band, pulls back with his hips, not his arms. The thing slows, not by miracle, by physics and stubbornness. A jerk from the mules, at that exact moment, throws the flatbed into a lurch. The bell rings again. Someone on Mercer's line laughs to dirty the air. The barrel yaws left, kisses the shovel, then jumps the groove and starts for the porch in a fresh line that would carry it right through the sill boots if fate were allowed to drive. Nora moves her own piece of the world. She snaps the canvas apron sash free in one motion, scoops the wet feed sack from the trough, flings the soaked weight across the wood in front of the first step. Water splashes into the groove, makes a dark stripe. The barrel hits the wet cloth and loses temper, just enough. Rhett wedges the block home. Luther's rope sings a hard line around the hoop. Josiah plants both boots wide, throws his shoulder behind the blade. All force goes into the ground. Not up, not sideways. The barrel stops at a slant. Breath returns to the yard. A bird makes a sound like a hinge that just found oil. Nobody cheers the way hard people save their throats for later. Mercer's smile thins to a piece of wire. He says, "Clumsy teamster, my apologies to your porch, Miss Ellis." While his eyes call it a pity the show did not reach the punchline, Rhett lifts the barrel with Luther 1, 2, 3, sets it back on the flatbed, but turns sideways with the tap hole nose to the sky rope lashed crosswise twice. then once more for the freighter to learn from the lesson, travels up the man's arms like current. Nora reties the apron slow, pulls the knot square again, finds her breath, ties another knot inside her chest that says, "Hold lines." The badge rider slouches in the saddle watching, not eager to write a report about exploding tar. No law broken yet, so he remains a scarecrow on a pony. Mercer changes script when the simple one fails. He waves the ledger and reads amounts that have nothing to do with truth and everything to do with volume. He points at the trough, at the rake, at the fork, as if tools owe him devotion. He taps his page with a pencil until the lead snaps. Rhett keeps still until stillness starts to look like surrender, then speaks. Once numbers written by strangers do not own muscles used by family. He puts a silver dollar with an eagle scratch on the rail for every line you raise. I drop coin on wood for labor. I already hired, name a fair sum for her day. We will meet it now, not by your page, by eyes. Mercer hates that kind of arithmetic because it burns the paper. His whole show depends on he opts for bluster, plants a placard on a post at the lane mouth blankboard. No words, only a smear of tar that pretends to be law. Nora steps off the porch and wipes that tar away with the wet feed sack until the board shines like clean pine. A gesture that looks like defiance but reads as housekeeping to anyone with sense. The crowd does not find a spark to strike, so Mercer tries noise again. He jerks his chin at the freighter, who leaps to the wagon seat, snaps the reins too sharp. A mule flinches a trace, pops, the flatbed rocks. The bell clatters and the back wheel climbs the rock. Rhett had moved earlier for the children. The load tips and a hay bale atop the crate slides toward the tie rail. The rope loses, but does not fail. The bale tumbles, but lands true. Then rockets toward Briscoe with ugly promise. Briscoe throws his head. Whites show. A horse is a life, not a prop. Luther goes first, palms open to the gelding, voice low like cool water. Briscoe hears a friend and keeps 4 on the ground. Josiah shoves a hitch pin under the spinning bale and turns panic into a stuck thing on dirt. Rhett plants his body between the hay and the horse, ready to be a wall if the rope asks for one. It does not need it. The mess stops moving. A breath later. Warning shots were not needed, but the rule of safe framing would have held if sky had to be wrung. Nora stands between porch and yard, braid tight, mouth calmer than her pulse. Mercer rides a circle, small and mean, and tells the badge rider to write something down. The badge has nothing worth ink. He shrugs and draws his boot heel in the dust like a boy told to study during supper. Mercer tires of failing quietly, so he reaches for thunder in another room. He claims a lien by noon. Tomorrow he will return with the deputy proper and the freight foreman, and they will seize movable goods, not bodies, not children. He says the last part like a joke that lost its teeth. Nobody smiles. Nora lifts her chin. Says the only sentence that matters: this place trades labor for daylight, not sham. For coin, come back with men who mend boards if you want to see a crowd. Work. The corner of Mercer's mouth ticks as if a horsefly just found his lip. He jerks the reins. Snaps a retreat. The wagons turn slowly. The tar barrel tied so tight now it could outlive 3 storms. The bell does not ring this time because Josiah took it off its hook and set it on the wagon bed where a man's hand cannot live. Foolish Mercer rides out, leaving a dust snake that uncoils toward the ridge and dissolves exactly where a bluff tends to swallow. Lying sound, the yard breathes, but the plot does not loosen. Rhett calls a quiet council on the porch rail while the sun stays high enough to let older eyes read lips. Josiah maps what comes when men return with paper. The lane must be clear, the trough full, the flat stones tamped, so no slip becomes a bruise. Luther suggests stacking wood waist-high in 2 rows to make a channel where wagons must pass. Slow speed is safety, Rhett adds, that the pump will want a new leather cup, so buckets can be filled faster if thirsty tempers need dousing. Nora listens, weighs again. Answers with jobs that knit a day into a jacket. The children will practice the cellar latch 3 times until muscle finds it in the dark. A loaf will be split before noon, so talkers do not twist hunger into anger. Tools will hang where hands find them without looking. The feed sack stays wet by the steps because a wet cloth diffuses a surprising number of foolish ideas. Her voice stays even spine. Quiet, proud of nothing except order that lets the small sleep. She nods once to each man. Gratitude like a coin passed palm to palm. Without the shine, Rhett brings from his saddlebag a small square of canvas, unrolled to show nails cut short and true. A hinge plate, a fresh leather pump cup, and a length of sash cord, the kind that keeps doors from blowing. Foolish, the hinge plate goes to the back door where a child's push becomes smoother. The leather cup slides into the pump. Throat, the handle sighs in relief. The sash cord threads through a porch post eye, and the blanket rolls so wind will not claim comfort from small shoulders. Tonight, work clicks forward like a well-made watch. The long afternoon builds to a mid-climax because stories and men both need a place to pour their energy. A clatter at the lane, mouth announces a neighbor team of freight mules spooked not by malice, by a flutter of canvas from Mercer's discarded show. The team takes the slope too quick. The wagon bed leans into the yard line. The driver fights the lines and loses the load lists. The way a boat does in Bad River, Nora is already moving left hand to the sash cord, right hand to a chock. Rhett grabs the rope coil. Luther sets himself as an anchor. Josiah sprints to the far wheel. The wagon kisses the new stone. Path then climbs a little, then thinks again. Gravity pulls with an argument. Nobody wins without help. Rhett whips the rope around the porch post twice. Body in line with the pull, not against it. Luther leans the other direction to balance the force. Josiah slams the chock under the near wheel. Nora throws the wet sack under the slipping shoe where iron meets stone to steal a little madness from the moment the mule team senses sanity return and steadies the wagon. Comes true with a lurch that threatens fingers but finds none, because each hand is where a thinking person put it. The driver, red-faced from shame, tips his hat. To Nora mutters, a thank you built of sand and breath, and backs the team out slow. Rhett allows himself 1 inch of a smile, then wipes it with his bandana knot. Still neat, nobody bleeds, nothing explodes. A valley learns that competence humiliates chaos in a way. Bullets never can, evening light has not arrived yet. Daylight remains full, righteous, honest, the kind that makes older viewers lean in rather than squint. Rhett resets the chock. Nora hangs the sack back on its peg. Luther and Josiah check the rope for fray, then coil it tidy again. Briscoe chews once and blows a soft snort, as if to praise a day that refused to ruin itself. Rhett turns to Nora and says a thing that tastes like oath without ceremony tomorrow when Mercer returns. This porch will hold. We will speak softer than him and move quicker than him. We will not trade heat for haste. She nods a fraction braid, catching a flash of sun that slips under the eave. We stand not for pride. She answers for small boots and sound hinges. Josiah scratches a notch in the porch rail to mark a plan. Made Luther begin stacking firewood into a waist-high run that shapes a narrow, calm road toward the barn door. Nora checks the cellar latch with 4 small hands in the doorway, moving where she tells them to without appearing on stage to any stranger eyes. The script for the morning writes itself with tools and pegs, not ink. Mercer's dust is long gone, but his echo remains. The yard decides not to fear it. Rhett brings Briscoe to the trough. Lets the gelding drink slow. The silver dollar with the eagle's scratch lies on the rail, where a general might set a medal. No one touches it. The coin stands for fair work. Not conquest. The lantern inside the house will not be needed, because the rule says, keep the frame bright for the end of the part, so the image in the mind stays crisp. The hour winds toward closing, but the line does not drop. The cattleman speaks into the clean air. Not to stir drama, to set a gear when the deputy rides in. You two stand where the wood narrows the lane. Nora on the porch with her apron wet and a cup of water in hand. Not a rifle. I hold the only gun and it points to sky if the moment asks a warning. Not a boast. Luther says sky can hold the noise. Josiah says wood can hold the load. Nora says children can hold breath exactly long enough if the latch clicks first. All 3 statements true. The sun lifts one last time before its long, lean west, as if to bless the plan and leave it. Steel bright. The Rhett sets his palm on the rail near the coin. Nora lays her palm next to his, not touching. The gesture reads as two posts joined by a plank you could walk across without falling. The day ends on that picture, not soft, not loud. A frame of readiness held in full daylight, waiting for the public test that Part 3 will bring. The last work of the day becomes building, not bracing. A coupe frame rises square and simple. The long hold of the afternoon belongs to small motion shavings fall in soft curls. Briscoe shifts, weight dust motes drift across a beamline. Sunlight stitches gold into hair and rope neighbors pass and offer real things, not stairs, spare nails, a jar of cedar pitch. A word about rain by the late edge of daylight. A sign hangs over the lane, sliced from a scrap plank with a pocket knife. No words, just a single carved line like a horizon level, and steady. The message is plain to anyone who can feel whether tomorrow is ours. The frame ends open to skyfire set small for tea. No dusk tricks. The image remains bright, clear, readable for older eyes. Rhett sets the eagle coin back in his pocket, not as a trophy, as a promise kept. Nora's thumb circles the rawhide once, twice. She looks at the children, then out across the ranch, then into his face. The day answers with a quiet that sounds like future. The frontier teaches that power, measured by paper buckles when it meets neighbors who show up with rope chocks and a wet cloth. Courage wears a cleaner face in daylight than in darkness, because honest hands want witnesses. Love grows best where work comes first, and pride learns to bargain with kindness. A home is not a fence line. It is the way a yard holds when pushed. If stories like this steady your heart and sharpen your will, stay with our campfire. New rides every week. Tap subscribe to the Wild Frontier Tales and ring the bell and travel on with us.